Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron here. I hope you're having a great day in Jesus. I want to talk about the time that Nathaniel A. Urshan, who was the former leader of the United Pentecostal Church at the time, came and preached at our little church in McDonough, Georgia. Now, it was quite the big deal. He had just, Brother Haney had been voted in the year before, I think. I think Brother Haney became the superintendent in 2000, 2001. And so the next year, Brother Urshan and Sister Urshan came to preach at Acts Church, the Book of Acts Church in Henry County. Now, I will tell you, I meant well when I named it Acts Church. I felt like it was a name the Lord wanted us to have, but when people in that area were very heavily denominational, primarily Baptist, and when I would say, I'd like to invite you to Acts Church, they thought AX, and maybe it's just my southern twang, that they were like, Acts Church? I'm like, no, like the book of Acts in the Bible, but it was like putting your wrong foot forward, let's just say that. So we pick up Brother and Sister Urshan, and by this time, I think he told me he was 78 or 79 years of age. And so when I picked him up, I mean, he just immediately began to talk, and he just talked and talked and talked about all kinds of stuff, and that's exactly what I wanted him to do. So I take him down to Morrow, Georgia, to a catfish restaurant. I think it was Bud's Catfish or something like that, and he just went into so many theological subjects, public subjects, preacher subjects, just any number of things. And so, man, we were going to treat him right. The Lord had blessed us. We had a little bit of money. So we took him out to Eagles Landing golf course. They had a little beautiful hotel. It was the finest hotel by far in our area. Now, they were a little elderly by this time, kind of shuffled when he walked a little bit. Brother Urshan, his father was from Assyria, Iran, Iraq, that area, and had the swoop hair going on and all this, but he was just a commanding man. And, he just knew everybody. Like Brother Mooney told me when he went to Washington, D.C. with him, that all the congressmen fought over him. Brother Urshan, sit with us. Brother Urshan, sit with us. He'd be invited to go to the inauguration, sit next to Billy Graham, and preach to the presidents, have Lyndon Baines Johnson over the Oval Office desk crying and weeping and repenting and things such as that. And he just was an amazing diplomat for the apostolic movement. And so, but it was like a total comedy of errors. So we're going to have him Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we get him at this first class, amazing hotel. And when I came to pick him up later, they were moving. And I'm like, well, why are you moving, switching rooms? Oh, we had ants in our room. I'm like, oh, Lord. So Brother Urshan had ants in his room. So he comes for the Friday night, and we had just a kind of a poor crowd. I think we had 90 there. And so then we take him out to Pasta Max or something like that on Eagles Landing Parkway there in Stockbridge, McDonough, Georgia area. Nice restaurant. I bragged to the high heavens. I'm already feeling bad that we gave him an ant-infested room, and he knew we meant well. And, it was an expensive room. I mean, we had it just decked out. We had roses, I think, in there for her. We just really did it up right. And so then a bunch of people went out to eat with us. They all wanted to be around Brother Urshan. And would you believe that they forgot Brother Urshan's order? And so everybody got their food, and we're like getting it. Where's it? Oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. We all get done eating. He still doesn't have his food. He's like 78, 79. And we're like, finally, they were like, oh, well, it's just some big mix-up. And I'm like, this is absolutely terrible. And one of the funny stories, and I'm not even sure I should be telling this though, but when I went to drop him off at the airport, he was like, well, he didn't get the vote last time. He's like, you could I said, well, you were a great superintendent, and we loved you, and you just did so much for our movement. And he did. He just represented it so well. But he was like, well, just come on back next General Conference and vote for me. So that was kind of a unique thing. But Brother Urshan, had a heart for pastors, a heart for ministers. I'll tell you a cute story he told me. He told me about that there was a man that was known for being kind of a very austere holiness preacher, apostolic preacher. And he came to Brother Urshan, and he said he was weeping and crying. And he said, Brother Urshan, he said, God has convicted me about you playing racquetball. So Brother Urshan was like, well, that's kind of interesting. God convicts you for me. He's like, I feel like you need to give up racquetball. I feel like you're going to go to hell playing racquetball and all that. And so he told the brother, he said, well, he said, and I won't mention the brother's name, and because I could, but he said, now you like to fish, don't you? Yeah, love to fish. And he said, and you got a bunch of fishing poles? Yeah. He said, you got a boat? Mm-hmm. He said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, you sell all your boat and all your, I think he had 200 or 300 fishing poles. He said, you do that and I will quit playing racquetball. Because it's the same thing. You're spending hours out on the boat. You're convicted about me playing racquetball. So he did. These guys said, I'll do it. I'll do anything, because God's really dealing with me about this. So he said he went back and sold everything. And so Brother Urshan quit going to play racquetball. He said he'd go for at lunch during the middle of the day to the racquetball place, and kept him in shape, Preachers don't get out and dig ditches and stuff a lot of times, so you have to do some activity, stay a little bit in shape and some health there. And so, but he said a month or two went by, he heard he bought the fishing stuff back. Brother Urshan said he started going back to the racquetball court and didn't think anything about it. And Brother Urshan also, the older he got, the more conservative he got. And the amazing stories of him bringing the factions of like Brother Westberg in Kansas, who again was known as kind of an ultra holiness preacher, and bringing him together with certain people that did not lead with that or didn't have the same convictions and those type things. Just fantastic. And a lot of people, I remember Brother Walters telling me that like Brother Westberg thought that Brother Urshan was ultra liberal. And he said, well, have you ever talked to him? No, I hadn't talked to him. He said, well, you need to get together. And then getting together, and they end up finding an awful lot of common ground. And that's the way it is most of the time in the apostolic movement. If people are really seeking the Lord, you really find an awful lot of common ground. And so Brother Urshan, strangely enough, as the older he got, the more conservative he got, to the point to where a lot of his fellowship meetings towards the end of his life that he would attend, and became good friends with apostolic ministerial fellowship folks that had broke away from the UPC in the late 60s, 1967 General Conference, if I'm not mistaken. And because he loved truth most of all. And his dad, I'm just finishing up reading his dad's biography, and what a lover of truth he was. So that's when Brother Urshan came to preach at our church. Another thing I loved about Brother Urshan, he would preach for you no matter how big your church was. He recognized he represented the entire fellowship. So he's with presidents, and he's with conventions of several thousand. Some of the general conferences during his tenure went to 20,000 in Louisville and things like that. But he'd go preach at a home missions church we just started a few years before that only had 80, 90 people. So God bless. Talk with you later in Jesus' name.